What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. The Galar region is fast approaching, and still has a fair bit of mystery surrounding it. At least if you're like me and don't bother looking at anything outside of official sources. Seriously, don't bother commenting about the leaks and spoiling the experience for everyone else, because you will be blocked indefinitely. It doesn't make you cool, it doesn't make you better than anyone else, it just ruins the experience for everyone. However, one thing we all know for sure is that there is no shortage of ways to provide buffs for older Pokémon. Regional variants have returned, giving Galarian forms to older creatures. And there are even new evolutions that have not been discovered before that can provide renewed interest in a Pokémon line. And there's also the possibility of Gigantamaxing a Pokémon, changing its body and size to greatly increase its presence in battle. So I thought it would be prudent to look back at some of the older Pokémon in need of some attention, and determine which of these ways might best suit them to help. So, here are the top 6 Pokémon that deserve a buff in Sword and Shield. Number 6. Stantler. I could go with the obvious choice of needing some attention with Dunsparce, but that's probably the most predictable one, and could very likely happen. One that I think is less likely, but just as necessary, would be for Stantler to get a buff. This solitary deer Pokémon has graced the back of many a Pokémon fan's mind since its debut. And honestly, part of me seriously wonders if they didn't make Stantler just so the Santa in the Pokémon world could stop using Ponyta. But Stantler is actually a profoundly useful Pokémon if you want it to be, with the stereotypically massive move pool many normal types have, and decent enough stats with some great abilities. So there's not really too much you can do with this Pokémon as is, which is a shame since it has the weird psychic illusion horns. But even that wasn't enough to draw it out from the sea of other Johto one-offs. To me, that means for maximum impact, Stantler requires a regional form. I believe Stantler should turn into a Psychic type. It already knows a rack's worth of Psychic type moves, and the lore behind this Pokémon already gives its horns strange reality-altering properties in a number of dex entries. Imagine a big deer with psychic glowing antlers that could kill you with its mind. It'd be like a muscular Xerneas. It could be psychic and normal, or it could just take a full switch and become pure psychic. But powering up the horns on this beast, and of course altering its stats, would maybe make people actually focus on this underappreciated Pokémon for a change, and talk about its cool new regional variant. Number 5. Seaking. Gen 1, whether you like it or not, is filled with more iconic Pokémon than any other region. Among the impacts the originals had was the huge splash the number of water Pokémon made from the start. There were so many water Pokémon that had different types and tactics that you could easily build multiple monotype teams and still have some left over. But for some reason, to me, the only Pokémon not to quite live up to that same level is Seaking. It's not that Seaking or Goldeen are bad. They're perfectly usable in battle, with some great possible moves to take advantage of its physical attack, and even the potential for the Lightning Rod ability to get rid of one of its only 2 weaknesses. It just seems that they're not really included in the same breath as some of the other great Gen 1 water types. So I think a good way to counter this would be to give Seaking a new Gigantamax form. I'm still iffy on the gimmick as a whole, but it's here, we've got it, so some Pokemon might as well benefit from it, right? And I think it could do Seaking some good to blow up to a massive size. The extra design aspects wouldn't need to change it too much, kind of like how Corviknight's is relatively minimalistic. And I know that they're based on Qwilfish, and it might just be me, but I've always gotten a subtle salmon vibe off of Seaking, so maybe that could even come into play. And that could also be an inspiration for its G-Max move. See, all the new Gigantamax forms get supercharged moves that also have some kind of secondary effect. So, since salmon are famous for swimming upstream, and the fact that the Seaking line was the only one to learn Waterfall through level up for decades, I thought G-Max Upswell would work, where Seaking swims up through a current of water to slam into the target. But this sudden rush of hydration would also end up soaking the target, turning them into a water type. It probably won't happen this way at all, but Seeking could use this kind of push to get up there and be part of the respected Gen 1 water types club. Number 4. Qwilfish. This pufferfish Pokemon is one with which I have a problem from the Johto region, mostly because it's bland, unremarkable, and utterly forgettable. I've never heard of anyone claiming this as their favorite Pokemon, so if it is, please comment down below because I would be shocked. But this poisonous fish honestly gets obscured when you think about the hundreds of other Pokemon out there, and it just pales in comparison to the really cool single stages in Johto, but isn't quite weird enough to fit in with the really niche ones either. So, even though Qwilfish has a decent spread of attacks and status moves, it could really use something to give it a boost. So I would say the best thing to do for Qwilfish would be to give it a regional variant form. Personally, I would turn it into a Poison and Steel type, which is an amazing pairing that results in 10 resistances and only 2 weaknesses. Plus, just imagine a chrome-topped Qwilfish covered in metal spikes. It would be a great design choice. Can you imagine it? Oh, looks like you don't have to imagine it, since numerous people online have already created such imagery. And before you get on to me and say that it would have to keep the water typing to still live in the ocean, my good friends Lugia and Dratini have something to say about that. And I guess my loose workplace acquaintance Stunfisk. So, even if I don't love Qwilfish personally, it's clearly in need of something to bring it out of obscurity. And I think a regional form would be just the thing. Being able to use the unique Poison and Steel typing to finally leave a lasting mark on trainers after all these years. Number 3. Myrrhctus. Easily the newest Pokemon to appear on this list, Myrrhctus has a healthy reputation for being one of the most overlooked Pokemon in the Unova region. But even if you haven't completely forgotten about it, it's not very likely that you'll ever use a Myrrhctus. It's truly got the short end of the stick. Myrrhctus has the lowest base stat total of any fully evolved grass type in the Unova region. If that wasn't bad enough, Myrrhctus is primarily a special attacker, which sounds fine and dandy, but the only special moves this Pokemon can learn are Grass and Normal. No coverage whatsoever. But just take a look at the plethora of physical moves Myrrhctus already naturally gets. Aerial Ace, Poison Jab, Drain Punch, Knock Off, Sucker Punch. So I propose giving Myrrhctus an evolution that would crank up its physical attack to better utilize its move pool. As much as I would love to finally have a Grass and Fire type, I don't know that it necessarily fits here. I think a Desert Cactus might be good for another Grass and Ground type. It's a combination that I really like, and you could provide a bunch of new Ground type moves to help take out any of the Fire types that might be in its environment. And keeping some of the abilities that give it a water immunity would help even out those weaknesses a little bit. We've already seen that Myrrhctus is in the game, and various desert areas as well, so this could all likely happen anyway. You could focus the evolution more on its musical themes if you wanted, maybe even evolving into Myrrhctus or something like that. It would just be such a blessing for Myrrhctus to receive an evolution that could boost its reputation in the Pokemon world, and a Ground-type regional evolution that raises its physical prominence while also providing new potential moves for its already high special side, means this cactus can finally claw its way out of many a most forgotten list. Number 2. Chimecho. Honestly, the Pokemon I forget exists most often is probably Chingling. It's just so thoroughly forgettable. And its evolution Chimecho somehow doesn't fare much better in my mind, despite it being a major mascot for Team Rocket for a while and one of my favorite parts of the anime. I don't hate Chimecho at all, it just needs something to make it stand out a bit more. So, in my mind, the best way to handle that would be for Chimecho to get a new Gigantamax form. This particular Pokemon has never been all that threatening, but not all Gigantamax Pokemon are. To me, it's fairly obvious that a giant mutant Chimecho would heighten the wind chime theme. This time, maybe slip into more of the Western style with multiple chimes hanging down all around. Basically, I'm imagining an upside-down chandelier, but with wind chimes, and there are a lot more of them. As for its G-Max move, I think something along the lines of G-Max Reverberate would be good. The blown-up Psychic type would send a huge sound wave out from the jingling chimes, and hit all of the opponents, even the ones that are immune to sound attacks. And it would also confuse all of the Pokémon hit with this powerful Psychic Sonic move. So Chimecho is a right fine Pokémon, but never really gets to enjoy being considered as useful as some of the others. I mean, it's not even near the top of Psychic-type Levitators from Hoenn. But giving Chimecho its very own Gigantamax form could remind people this Pokémon exists, and to underestimate it at your own peril. Number 1. Letian. One of the Pokémon in most need of any kind of help is definitely Letian. This ladybug family shares the regional bug spot with Ariados, but never seems to get the same appreciation that others out there do. Probably because it's so weak. Letian has a lower base stat total than all of the middle stage starters, which means that it becomes rapidly outclassed even near the beginning of your journey. Letian does have a pretty decent move pool with U-Turn, Air Slash, Comet Punch, Mach Punch, and even Thunder Punch and Ice Punch, which makes sense as to why it was given the hidden ability Iron Fist. Unfortunately, its physical attack is by far its lowest stat at 35. It's like they're trying to make this guy terrible. Even if you gave it a regional form, those only shift the stats around and don't actually increase them. So to me, the only possible way of salvaging this particular Pokémon would be to give it an evolution. I'm not sure what kind of influence this evolution should take. Really, anything would be an improvement over these two pre-existing bugs. But to really ratchet up the improvements, why not go ahead and make it Bug and Steel? Maybe you could call it Lediborg. Not only could it help with the limited Steel pool from Gen 2, but if given a group of Steel-type moves to dish out, this evolution would be a welcome change. Plus, it's not like Letian was benefiting hugely from that flying type, and Bug and Steel only has one weakness. Maybe buffing it that much is wishful thinking, but as harsh as Letian has it now, this evolution would only just about bring it up to the middle of the pack. It's not like you could ever have an overpowered version of these Pokémon. But Ladybug and Letian are in dire need of some kind of improvement, so adding a third one as a regional evolution might just do the trick. So, those are the top 6 Pokémon that should be buffed in Pokémon Sword and Shield. Which Pokémon do you think needs some attention? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!